My brother arrived early, already smiling, already shaking hands with his attorney like this was a formality they were indulging before lunch. He wore the same watch he'd worn to our father's funeral. Gold, heavy, unnecessary. He caught my eye as I came in and gave me a look that said we could have handled this privately. Which was his way of saying you forced my hand. I took a seat behind my lawyer and folded my hands in my lap. I'd learned that stillness reads differently depending on who's watching. To some people, it looks like composure. To others, it looks like collapse. The room smelled faintly of disinfectant and old paper. The kind of place where voices don't echo, they flatten. Where no one raises their voice because the walls don't reward it. His attorney stood when called, confident, brisk. She spoke in clean sentences, practiced emphasis. We want everything she owns. Today, she said it like a deadline had passed and I hadn't noticed. They laid it out methodically. That I was unstable. That I'd been erratic since our mother died. That I had a history of poor financial decisions. That assets had gone missing. That family property had been concealed. That the estate was at risk under my management. Each phrase was designed to sound reasonable on its own. Together, they painted a picture of someone unfit to be trusted with anything more complex than a checking account. I felt the familiar urge rise, the need to correct tone, to clarify intention, to explain myself back into personhood. It's a reflex you develop when people speak about you in rooms where you are present, but not addressed. I didn't take the bait. My brother leaned back, crossing one ankle over his knee. He looked bored, like he'd already moved on to the next inconvenience. When the judge asked if I wished to respond, my attorney began to stand. I touched her arm just once. She paused, surprised, then sat back. I stood instead. I don't have a statement, I said. My voice sounded thinner than it had in my head. But I do have one document I'd like entered into the record. The judge nodded, neutral. Proceed. I handed over a sealed page. No speech, no preamble, just paper. The bailiff took it, broke the seal, and began to read. It was an inventory list, nothing dramatic in the title. Just an accounting. Itemized, dated, cross-referenced. I'd spent months assembling it, though no one knew that. I hadn't told my brother. I hadn't told my aunt. I hadn't even told my lawyer everything, only what she needed to know to file it properly. The bailiff read the first line. No reaction. He read the second. He stopped. Not theatrically. Not with a gasp. He simply stopped reading and looked up. His eyes went to my brother. There was a pause, not long, but long enough to feel like something had shifted its weight in the room. The bailiff looked back down at the page, then up again, as if checking that he hadn't misread. Sir, he said, addressing my brother now, can you confirm this line item? My brother's smile faltered. Just slightly, the way a confident expression does when it realizes it's missing a piece of information. What is this? His attorney asked quickly. The judge held up a hand. Let him answer. The line was simple. A trust account. Opened 12 years ago. Funded quietly, consistently. Not hidden, reported, documented, but not shared. Not with me, not with anyone. An account my brother had insisted didn't exist when the estate was divided. An account he'd sworn under oath was never established. The bailiff continued reading. By the 5th line, my brother had uncrossed his legs. By the 7th, his attorney was flipping through her binder too quickly to be casual. I stayed where I was. Hands folded. Breathing slow. I wasn't enjoying this. That surprised me a little. I'd imagined, if not satisfaction, then at least relief sharp enough to feel like a win. Instead, there was a dull ache behind my sternum. A sense of inevitability, finally catching up to him. The judge asked for clarification. Then documentation. Then an explanation. My brother tried to speak. He stopped himself. Tried again. For the first time since we were children, he sounded unsure. The authority in the room shifted, not with a bang, but with a turn of attention. The questions were no longer aimed at me, the assumptions no longer framed around my supposed instability. The language changed, became precise, became narrow. Facts have a way of doing that. They reduce the available space for performance. The hearing recessed shortly after. Not because a decision had been reached, but because the record had expanded beyond what could be handled in one sitting. As people stood, my brother leaned toward me. "Why didn't you just tell me?" he whispered. Not angry now. Something closer to affronted. I looked at him and saw not a villain, but a man who had mistaken silence for ignorance. Who had built certainty on the absence of resistance. "I didn't think you'd listen," I said, which was true, and also incomplete. Outside the air felt colder than it should have. My lawyer asked if I was okay. I told her yes. She didn't press. There was no celebration. No phone calls. No sudden reversal of fortune. The case would continue. The family would fracture further before it healed, if it ever did. But something had settled. For the first time in months, I didn't feel like I was waiting for permission to exist in my own life. I walked down the courthouse steps alone, inventory complete, dignity intact, knowing that preparation hadn't given me everything. But it had ensured I wouldn't leave with nothing.